Hi, everybody. My name is Nataki Garrett. I'm the artistic director of the Oregon Shakespeare Festival, and I go by she, her pronouns. I am so excited to introduce this amazing, important, inciting project called the Visual Sovereignty Project. I'm excited about these artists and what they're about to bring, and I'm excited about this idea of sovereignty. So a year ago, somebody was speaking to me about the community, the Native and Indigenous community that's here in Ashland. And one of the things that came up in that conversation was that sovereignty is not negotiable. And I didn't understand what sovereignty meant. I think I understood it conceptually and intellectually, but I didn't really understand it humanistically. It took me a while to come to a real understanding of what it means to own thyself and to be able to govern thyself and to have ownership over the space in which you exist in. And something very specific about what that means if you're indigenous to this land. And so I honor the space of sovereignty, and I'm excited about the expressions of sovereignty, but I move beyond the concept of sovereignty into a space of trying to remove anything that would exist as an obstacle to it. And so this is one of the ways in which I can participate in making sure that one's own sovereign state and the expression of that space is something that is amplified and held and reasserted as many times as possible. And so I really am thankful for Hava Florendo and for all of these artists and for the amazing work that we are about to see. May it give you an understanding and inspiration to support sovereignty. But whether you do or not, this is an opportunity to decolonize your mind, decolonize the space, decolonize the artistry of these people, and to give us all an opportunity to humble ourselves, step back, and give a platform. So here we are, and thank you so much for being here.
Itukdiwigwa, everybody. Oh my goodness, such beautiful Indigenous creatives in front of me on this beautiful screen. And I am so excited to finally see these incredible pieces showcased live on OSF's Facebook and YouTube channels. And my name is Hava Florendo. I am a descendant of the Wasco people, and I am just really thrilled to have this opportunity to, after OSF said, we would love for you to do a digital piece with Indigenous people. I said, what would you like to do? And they said, what would you like to do? And I said, well, what would they like to do? So here we are with the Visual Sovereignty Project. Just quickly, I wanted to say two things about it is one of our artists who was unable to join us today, we had a beautiful conversation about what is visual sovereignty. And as a young photographer and filmmaker, he really said how important that is in our communities and in our conversation and amongst our artists to really push it out there, that we can keep pushing ourselves and presenting art that we choose to push and present, not what audiences are expecting. And that's exactly what this platform is about. And so when I met each and every one of you fantastic people via Zoom, I said, I would just love for you to do whatever you want to do. And boy, did you. So first, I would just absolutely love if each of you in your own way would introduce yourself. Let's start with Ann.
Danjo, Adeanse. My name is Ann Casada. I am Jicarilla Apache from Dulce, New Mexico, and I currently live here in Albuquerque, New Mexico. It's great to be here with y'all.
Thank you. Tara.
Hische Estongo, Teatro Chefkados. So hello everyone, my name is Tara Moses, she, her pronouns, citizen of the Seminole Nation of Oklahoma, as well as Muskogee Creek, calling in for the Muskogee Creek Reservation, or what was formerly known as Tulsa, Oklahoma. So thanks y'all, Mado.
Carrie.
Bonjour, Carrie Moran McCleary, she, her pronouns. I'm Little Shell Chippewa, Cree, and Métis, and a member of the Apsáalooke Nation, coming to you from Crow Reservation.
Raven.
Yate, my name is Raven Bright. I'm from Gallup, New Mexico, and I'm currently on occupied Tewa lands right now, ABQ, Mexico.
Thank you, Raven. Lee.
Aloha kako, I'm Lee Alakeo Cataluna, she, her, hers. I am Native Hawaiian from the Kainoa Puka family from Mana, Kauai. I am here in Honolulu in the land of the Kanaka Maoli.
Thanks, Lee. Malaya.
Ayakui everyone, Neknau Malaya Florendo, Eugene Ok, Wishquel, Esi Hopau, Miko Mechok, Nechekwau, Analia Hillman, Nate Sechwau, Lauren Florendo. My pronouns are she, her, hers. I'm an enrolled Siletz member, but I also come from the Wasco, the Yurok, and the Karuk tribes.
Thanks, Malaya. And not least, but Mr. Tai.
Boo to the Jew, everyone. Boo Jew, Thai, Defo Indigenous cause, Waswaganan and Dunjaba, Magizan and Dudam, Wabunung, Jaunung, Nagabunung, Minoki Wedinong, Nemama, and Dao Ao, Horido Shoni territory, Indigenous queer, Nish Manitowag. So pronouns, the he series today, we or just Thai. And thank you so much.
Tai. I wanted to open before we start showcasing these incredible videos. I would love the group just to say a little bit when I came to you with this idea of this project and we sat back and had conversations. I would love for you to share with the audience what visual sovereignty is to you as an artist. Anybody who's willing.
I can start. Yeah, so for me, I'm a director and a playwright. And so whenever Hava came to me about a visual sovereignty project, I was like, okay. But after I took a moment, really thinking about what does it mean to have my own creative sovereignty, which is something I talk about a lot, which is very similar in just how we decide to express ourselves, and just the opportunity to do something visual, especially since I had a previous career as strictly a visual artist and haven't been able to pick that back up since theater started going off the rails, right? But also the ability to be you know what? Being able to explore something I enjoy that I don't do for money, something that I just want to pour out into a visual way, something I also want to challenge my own notions of what excellence is, because striving for perfection is upholding white supremacy and colonialism. And so the ability to uphold ourselves and our work and create whatever we want to do in the ways that feel satisfying to us, regardless of the additional layers that come with performance and so on and so forth, is what I think about visual sovereignty, being able to create in that way. And then, yeah, that's all I'll say for now.
Tai.
Yeah, I'll pop in and say, hearing about visual sovereignty, I'm like, whoa, what in the world shall I make or do? Being a maker and creative artist that oftentimes is asked to fit in particular size boxes, to fit in particular types of ways, either to represent a gender identity, sexual orientation, and or a racialized identity. To have sovereignty, I think I'm thinking about some of our teachers, Lee Markle, who talks about freedom is outside of the box created for us, and this is something that really spoke to me. When it talks about visual sovereignty, I'm thinking about visual sovereignty. I'm like, oh, immediately I was like, wow, visual sovereignty demands time, space, and the body. So when I was definitely thought about Anishinaabe worldview and the set of instructions and lore that were handed down from generations to come, and I was thinking about those ironic T-shirts that folks wear, that I am my ancestors' wildest dreams, and I'm like, whoa, here I am, Hava asked me to do this. And I'm like, wow, what could I possibly dream and build in this moment? So I was thinking about nourishing the imagination. I was thinking about, wow, here's an opportunity to collide and layer and world build. And I was thinking about what are the ways at which I can create jurisdiction over myself to create infinite possibilities within, right, this limited time, of course, but how can I create infinite possibilities for myself and others?
And Ty, I think you nailed exactly when I had time to think through it. I said, I just want to give artists the agency to do whatever is the gift that they choose to give. And I kept asking, so what gift do you choose to give? And I was just so, I know that's a personal thing. It's a real personal thing to let that go and give that when it's not already predefined for you. So that was really incredible to see the work that came from that. Does anybody else have anything they want to say about sovereignty before we dive into these wonderful pieces?
You know, I feel like I'm a little bit older than the other artists, but for me, just the fact that we still have our art, that we still are practicing our ways is a literal visual sovereignty, like every day when you walk in your workroom and start working, and that we are still doing that is so amazing. I'm just so honored to be among these same people who have strove to do that, and that your families have given you those opportunities to know those things. And it means a lot, because at this day and age, we're talking about people who have been completely erased from their people, and we're all blessed to not have had that happen, or to have come back from that, either way. But I think, you know, I grew up in the 60s and 70s, and it was a little different than it is now, you know, than I see my children and grandchildren. And so I'm just so proud and happy that we can even have this discussion. I'm just overjoyed.
Thank you, Carrie. All right, artists, are you ready to see everybody's work? So excited. I am so thrilled. We're going to start right off with Miss Ann and her piece Connection. And Ann, I cannot even say how thrilling it was to work on this piece with you and to try and bring your vision to life and to imagine your vision in my brain. And that just the beauty of what you were able to capture. And you know, I'm just so thrilled for the world to see that. I would love for you to share how this idea, how this piece came to you, whatever you'd like to share before we show everybody.
Yeah, and I'll also huge shout out to Hava for playing a huge role, like cornerstone role in bringing this together, because she helped take all of these wild ideas and images and help string them into a cohesive story. So she's very integral in helping me tell my story. And bringing the story out was, there's so much, because we are such dynamic individuals. You know, a lot of times when we get hired to do stuff as Native artists, they want to see the particular side of you, like that they think is sexy or interesting or sacred, whatever box they want to place you in. And I just really wanted to represent myself as a modern person who comes from a huge history and who has these deep connections that inform everything that I do. But I'm also still, living in the modern world. I still, have so much more that's informing me that can help me look forward. So it's not just a completely me looking backward telling a story. It's also me looking forward, and hopefully helping people find a grounded way to inform the way that they move. And also, like as a dancer, a lot of times you don't get asked to talk. You get asked to move. You get asked to look pretty and like do things on stage, and that's wonderful. That's my strong suit. I'm not a very eloquent speaker, honestly, but having this opportunity really pushed me to find a story that felt the most true to me. And that was an opportunity that I really felt super grateful to have, because having the opportunity to find that story and giving space to tell that story was huge. It felt really, really meaningful to me.
I was blown away with it, and I love your narration in it. So I'm super excited for everybody to see. And without further ado, let's kick this off and share with everybody Connection.
This is where I'm from. This is where I feel the most like myself. This is peace. I think there are countless cultures that connect their identity and ways of life to place. It's a relationship that is so multifaceted and so deep that it's hard to put to words. When I walk on this land, I feel all of those levels. I acknowledge that this land is full of history and has so many stories. I acknowledge that my time here has brought so many teachings about connection to the soil, to the rocks, to the plants, to the animals. And I hold so much joy in that connection. I acknowledge that there is so much potential for what is to come, so many more cycles of life to be nurtured by the confluence of elements. When I walk on this land, I feel all of this. I see my plant relatives and I greet them and remind myself of what medicines they hold or what colors they produce when they die. I know how they connect to culture and traditional art. I'm super blessed to have a family that's taught me how to butcher, tan hides and bead and weave baskets and make pottery and everything that comes with those teachings. I know what the plant medicines and foods look like and when they're ready to harvest. I can come to this land and feel all those connections around me. The feeling I get when I'm here is one of peace and joy and excitement. This lived relationship has shaped the way I view the world and the way I walk through. It's raised traditionally, but I also grew up on the res. We don't have access to the same things that people who live in the city do. The pace of life is different, people are different, foods at the grocery store are different. When I was growing up, there was no dance studios, no opportunities to learn mainstream Western arts, and even if there were, the kind of stuff wasn't really for us. Connecting movement to improv, to art, started when I was dancing powwow. Because there's a form there, but it's also like all improv. Like all the moves you're stringing together is just like off the top. And you're positioned in a circle and everybody is faced inward around you. And all of their eyes are pointing toward you. And you're dancing with other people, yeah. But that's your space to kind of see what you can put together. I feel like that was a really safe place to develop that relationship with movement. I feel like when I dance, I can communicate better to a person who I am. My perspective is different because my background is different. Didn't have access to dance studios, didn't have access to dance community to nurture specific dance styles. I just have connection and the intuition to feel what that's like and translate it through movement. Something that's felt, that's lived, and is experienced only in the moment and never reproduced the same way ever again. And the way that I move isn't necessarily pretty. I'm not thinking about having clean lines or long shapes. I'm living in my own strength. I'm showing my power, how dynamic I am as an individual, at the same time showing you everything that I'm experiencing when I'm hearing that song. My style is just a reflection of what I feel and what my body can do at the moment. And that's always changing. Like, my style is just me speaking with the vocabulary that I happen to have on me right then and there. Embracing the connections that I feel and not being afraid to live them, experience them, and share that with other people. And that connection is like deep and powerful. And that's the same way that I feel when I'm on my land, when I'm with my people. That big connection has a lot of big feelings associated with it. And it's a lot of feelings that I could never ever put into words. Not in a way that feels true and accurate and the most correct. When I dance, I feel connected. And when I'm home, I feel connected. And there's a lot of space in between where I don't feel like that. My morning commute doesn't feel like that. Sitting at a desk and doing computer work doesn't feel like that. But those spaces, when I'm home and when I'm dancing, those feel real. Those feel deep. Those feel authentic. And they're both my happy places. A place where I feel the most like myself. And living at my fullest potential, surrounded by the most love.
Well, if that didn't shock an audience for whatever they were expecting from an Indigenous creative, I don't know what would. And I would just love for you to expand just a tiny bit. You made a comment in your thing about how, and I've never thought of it this way, about how our powwow dancers are just incredible dancers and how that translated into your style and movement and how you've pulled things. What other things have influenced you over the years?
I think I've kind of been a loner for as much as you can be as a Native person who's like always surrounded by family. But I take a long time to process things and to think about things. And, you know, the same way when you listen to an elder and they take their time and they think, it's like, that's the speed that my brain works. So when I'm thinking and feeling all of these things, there's like so many little nuances in like what somebody says. So when I hear a song, there's like all of the little nuances that are traveling through my brain and want to come out my body. So a lot of it is really intuition, but having the form, like having like, you know, powwow, and there's no time to think and like plan out things. You just move it, you just feel, and you just do. Maybe it's the beat that's driving you. Maybe you've got some competition in the circle. Maybe there's somebody watching. Maybe that's going to change the way you move. And yeah, that's something that translates from like the powwow circle to like the cypher when you're dancing in like the hip hop community, because everybody's, again, positioned in a circle and everybody's eyes are coming in at you and they're all maybe judging, maybe a lot, maybe a little bit, maybe there's just nothing but love and appreciation for what you're doing. But that's like a lot of energy that's all focused inward on you. And so that's like a really interesting motivator too, because it changes the way you move and it changes what you do, no matter what your intention is. That like in the moment, pressure is completely different from when you're removed and maybe practicing in your bedroom with your music on and your headphones in and you're feeling yourself grooving a little bit. So there's all these different influences that help inform the movement. And yeah, all of it is just kind of like layered on year after year, experience after experience, and kind of just builds into what you are today.
And as one other thing I picked up on in your piece was talking about just how that wasn't for us is the comment that you made. And I think that, you know, so many of our Indigenous youth in particular still feel that way. And so I am so hopeful that these kind of pieces are inspirational for them to know that, you know, you have to go and claim it sometimes. And that's what I feel like you've done. You've gone into town and you've claimed it, and you've claimed those spaces, and you've claimed those walls and those murals as yours to dance with. And I just loved it. So thank you so much, Ann, for sharing that with us. It was such a pleasure. And what a wonderful way to kick everything off. I would love to go over and have a chat with Miss Tara about her piece, Divergent. And Tara, when you were giggling when you said I got a hold of you, and I said, I want you to do whatever you want to do. And you kind of gave me this Tara laugh on our Zoom call saying, what is that? And I said, I don't know. What are you going to do? And I'm so moved by this piece because it's really raw. It's really, it is really personal. And that's incredible that you chose to gift that much personal. And afterwards, I have a question for you about one of your final lines for sure. But what would you like to share with the audience about your piece before we kick it off?
Yeah. Well, it's so funny. Because I think it's like, I knew people were going to see it, right? But then I forgot anyway. And I was like, oh, at the end of it. Yeah, I think like what I really want to share is like, you know, like, and Ty mentioned this earlier too, but like, especially in this industry for myself, like people, and by people, I mean like predominantly white institutions, theaters that are not Native that hire me, so on and so forth. They can't see past like two things. And that is me being Native and me being a Native woman at that. Anyway, and, you know, I was thinking about it and I was like, I am many things anyway, that make up like the, oh my God, why am I emotional? Y'all, Mercury's in retrograde, it's a day. Anyway, oh, I'm so mad. Anyway, okay, good. See, actor training, it comes in handy. Look, we're back. Anyway, so yeah, I think what I was really exploring was just like existing.
Yeah, existing in the space that you're in and what you share and who you are. And you are a beautiful person. And I'm thrilled to share this piece with everybody. And with that, let's share Divergent.
He's Jay, Tara Cho, Chief Gados. Hello, my name is Tara Moses. My pronouns are she, her, hers. And I'm recording this from the Muskogee Creek Reservation, as well as the site of the 1921 burning of Black Wall Street. And these lands are the traditional lands of the Osage and Caddo. In short, Oklahoma is very complicated. And complicated is the theme of the day for my project Divergent for the Visual Sovereignty Initiative from Oregon Shakespeare Festival. And so a little bit more about me. I am a citizen of the Seminole Nation of Oklahoma, as well as Muskogee Creek. I'm a director, a playwright, artistic director, specifically co-artistic director in residence at Red Eagle Soaring, and the producing artistic director at Teletulsa, as well as co-founder of Groundwater Arts, and also many other things I don't mention typically, such as a beadwork artist, albeit a rusty visual artist. I'm also a consultant, a nonprofit fundraising professional, an Aries, a lot of things. And one of those things is also neurodivergent. And so oftentimes as a creator, usually as a director and a playwright, I write a lot, do work a lot in regards to my identity. However, my identity as a Native woman, not everything else. And so whenever this opportunity arose to think about my own creative sovereignty and what I would like to share and what I would like to do, I very much leaned towards creating a visual piece of art centered around myself as a neurodivergent person, because I very, very rarely, if ever, get to explore that, get to be open about that part of who I am, which makes up, the total human who I am. Anyway, and so what you're about to see is a time lapse of the visual piece that I create. 2 of my cats also make appearances, so enjoy those Easter eggs. But also furthermore, the narration piece that I wrote and then narrated is very much unfiltered, how I think about things, talk about things as a neurodivergent person. Right now it's really interesting and kind of odd because I am very filtered right now. I tend to be very filtered whenever I'm talking publicly of any sort, coming right after being an unfiltered and just speaking as though in how I want to. Anyway, so it's very interesting, very interesting. That's just the word. Anyway, but without further ado, I present Divergent, and thank you, Bedeau. Indians are quiet. They take their time before they speak. They really think over every word said before they respond. But I can't do that. Don't get the wrong idea with this whole stoic stereotype. That's not what I'm saying. My grandma has told me ever since I was a young girl that I was not like any other person she met. But that didn't come with a desire to find out why, I just simply was. She loves to say that I'm the fastest talking Indian she's ever met. I know a lot of Indians. I'm related to a lot of Indians. I'm around a lot of Indians a lot of the time, and I'm starting to think that she might be right. My entire life I knew something was different, but I didn't know what. Maybe I was just smart, or that wasp sting I got in the back of my head when I was 8 did something to me. That was a joke for a long time. My sister stepped on a nest and ran inside, leaving me in the backyard. She's a treasure. But it wasn't until the pandemic that things started getting out of control. For over 20 years, I figured out how my brain works and set up the supports and structures I needed to juggle the dozens of projects, multiple jobs, and my constantly packed schedule. But there was something about the pandemic that disrupted my well-oiled machine of a brain. Trauma response to pandemics is in my blood. Actually, scientists have proven how trauma can alter DNA expression, giving real meaning behind intergenerational trauma. But this was different. I could always get my brain to do what it needed to do. I could make it focus on something for hours on end and never need food or water or to go to the bathroom. However, that wasn't happening anymore. And I found out why. Turns out I've been neurodivergent this whole time and nobody told me. Yeah, when I told some friends about what I found out, a lot of them responded, "Oh, you didn't know?" No, I did not know, and I would have appreciated it if someone told me. But my people don't believe in that sort of thing. My community treats people as relations. There aren't added labels that I like to call qualifiers we assign to people. And that's because disability is a colonial construct. Colonization puts peoples in boxes and assigns them value in the hierarchy. Whiteness higher than brownness, brownness higher than blackness, neurotypical higher than neurodivergent, abled higher than disabled, and so on and so forth. In my family, though, there has never been talk about someone being disabled, even though so many are. There aren't conversations about how we will make certain places or practices accessible. They just are because our relation needs them. Now that I'm thinking about it, no one ever questioned why I could never get my hands dirty. As kids, we'd roll around in the mud and come inside to get washed up, and I would walk in covered from head to toe, except my hands would be clean. Get a drop of egg white on my hand when cooking and have to stop and immediately wash them. Can't use lotion. How did no one tell me I was neurodivergent? Well, because I was just another relation, a whole person, not someone with qualifiers that got assigned values. But unfortunately, that's only true at home. Out here in the theater, outside of community, those qualifiers matter because they matter to colonialism, and colonialism is every fucking where. However, for something so complex, it's also incredibly simple because this structure only needs one or two qualifiers to determine how valuable you are. However long, I felt as though I could only be one or two things. I could be a Native woman, or I could be a first generation college graduate. I could be fat and neurodivergent, but just two, because when you put all of those together, it's too much for people to handle and the system shorts out. So I restricted myself, creatively, professionally, personally, and it felt like people were taking bites out of me, leaving jagged edges behind for me to make sense of. In short, I am many things, and all of those things are important, and I want to be the whole relation that I am.
Tara, thank you so much for that very personal piece and for your emotions that you're sharing with us. And I'm sure that other people are feeling with you. I picked up on one thing in particular when you said that nobody ever told me, and there was never any special places or things set aside in our communities. And I thought about that and I said, that's true. I don't remember anybody ever having inside of our familial circles having to have a special place for anybody who had any kind of other abilities. I'm curious if anybody in the creative group here had any thoughts on that as well, and how that particular statement, or if that is true to their existence. And I love how you kept bringing up just being existing in your space as all the things that you are.
Yeah, I'm really curious too, just to hear from all y'all too, because we scream it till the cows come home. Like, we are not a monolith. Like, Indigenous people are not a monolith. So I'm just really curious if that's like one quality between like my specific communities, to share if anyone else is here.
And maybe also talking about that fitting in a box. I think it was interesting, Tara, that you mentioned that when approached, a lot of Indigenous artists, I think in particular, always are approached with a particular project that fits into some kind of mold and doesn't allow for all of your whole self to be represented, which was what we were trying to short the system out. As I saw that Nataki picked up on that piece, so I said, yep, we're trying to short the system out, saying that it doesn't need to fit in any particular model. And your piece, I think, spoke to that incredibly well. I really appreciated that. I would love to have a chat with Miss Carrie. Thank you again, Tara.
Yeah, thanks, y'all.
Carrie. Oh, thanks, everybody. We just had a little timeout. We got put on timeout for a second. Carrie, I found your beautiful dolls and some of your other beadwork on Instagram, and I know that you have been an artist for a long time, and I just am so moved. I was really drawn towards, and I told you this when I reached out the first time, I was really drawn to your dolls, and I was drawn to your dolls because they're so different than the dolls, the little Indian dolls we would find when I was a kid, at least, and that was what was so exciting. They did remind me, though, of these beautiful cornhusk dolls that I owned, that I was given when I was probably 4 or 5 years old, and I pack away and take from place to place all the 20 times I have moved, because they really mean so much to me. But I would love for you to tell us just a little bit about where you're from. And in particular, when we first talked, you mentioned that your tribe in particular just received, after how many years of fighting for it, acknowledgement of their sovereignty by the government. So I would love for you to introduce that.
Yeah, so I'm a member of the Little Shell Chippewa tribe. I'm also Cree and Métis, and I'm really honored to be Absaliga by order of adoption from my wonderful parents, the late Rick and Brenda Fighter. But as a Little Shell member, we were super excited a year ago to finally receive federal recognition after more than 100 years of traveling back and forth between different parts of Montana and across the Canadian border. And that's sort of what set up a complication for us was, the Canadian government kept saying that we were the United States problem. The United States problem kept saying we were Canada's problem. And a few other politics involved, but the bottom line was, the government just wanted to avoid us, and they were able to do that for a long time. And we were super lucky that the tribal officials just kept pounding it away at it for all of these years and just would go back in and go back in. And our state senator, John Tester, carried a bill to give us federal recognition many times over the years. He's a staunch supporter of Indian country and actually the MMIP movement as well in Washington. And we really appreciate what he does for us. But there was a state legislator that was a Republican, Rick Hill, who would not normally be someone we would think about as an ally for Indian country. But I remember he carried the bill so many times and we just couldn't get it done. And it was so wonderful to finally have that happen. And it really shouldn't, it's such a colonized thing to say, we need to have federal recognition. We need to have, that blood quantum card or that recognition that we belong to something, when we've all been in these communities. Our family has how many generations in our state, in our communities. But the order of the day when we're trying to get help in our communities and to hold people together becomes an actual notification or clarification as a sovereign nation. So you have that relationship with the government of sovereign to sovereign. It's pretty
that
great.
Sovereign to sovereign relationship is so important for so many more people. And the reason I really brought it up is to say we have Indigenous people all over this country still fighting to be recognized, and we need allies to help us with those rights and recognition that come with land back and that come with acknowledgement and go beyond land acknowledgements being said in a meeting. So that's why.
Absolutely. It's just a time thing. People just have to keep, pounding on that door. My mom is 80 years old this year, and she remembers, gosh, Tara got all worked up. I'm getting all worked up. My mom remembers the old people talking about this, how are we going to get there? When are we going to make this happen? And what they were doing to try and make it happen, and going, to the state capitol and to Washington, D.C. both. And, she's 80 years old. So it's pretty great. She finally got to see it, but you got to hang in there and keep pounding on that door to make it happen, I think.
One other small point about it is that I think it's also really important for us to talk about how our people didn't acknowledge those lines, right? The reason that there was this trouble with recognition is that your people traveled back and forth between what is now recognized as the United States and now recognized as Canada, and before it was just your ancestral territory.
Right.
That continued education of everybody is really important.
It really is. It really is. My family, we have ties, and even all the way over to Eastern Canada, because we slowly came across. And one of the reservations of the Pembina people, which is where I come from, it's just miles across the Canadian border. People go back and forth. We have another reservation in New York that's like that. It's on two sides. So the notion of the nation border was not applicable to Indigenous people.
And still isn't.
Right.
And going with that too is I think the whole story of your dolls and what you choose to create with your dolls is this, you speak to it in your piece, and so I won't say it all, but is that we're not just old time historical people. We are present and we are here. And with that, I would love to share your Fierce One doll video.
Who's you? My name is Carrie McCleary. I'm a fashion designer, beadwork artist, and doll maker. I'm also a member of the Little Shell Chippewa tribe of Indians of Montana, and I have lived here on the Crow Reservation for about 30 years. I have very strong family ties here as well. Today, I'm going to talk to you about my Fierce One dolls. In 2018, a fellow community member invited me to create a collection of dolls. We talked about what I was interested in at that time and how we wanted the dolls to look and what we wanted them to represent. I really wanted them to reflect the theme across all of my work, which is that we are still here. To me, that meant creating a visual reminder that we are still here in the 21st century, not in the 18th or 19th century. So we have really a 21st century notion of a Native American doll. She is wearing a 21st century version of the ribbon dress or ribbon skirt. The ribbon skirt is something that we wear for special events. It's something we wear to powwow. It's something we wear when we want to dress well for an event. And it's even something we wear into ceremony. The dolls also have a bling shirt. That's what we like. We like the sparkle right now. And so I think it's a nice compliment. The young gentleman dolls wear a ribbon shirt and then they just wear jeans. A lot of the materials are upcycled. I grew up upcycling a lot of my clothes because that's what my mother did. She upcycled things from one daughter to the next to the next. And I think right now in today's world, we're realizing that it's a good idea to upcycle or thrift rather than to go out and buy new if we don't have to. So the dolls are a blend of that. Some materials are difficult for me to find secondhand, but others I'm able to do that with. The belts are generally thrifted and they take a little bit more time because of that, but I just love it. All the dolls come in different colors, just like Indigenous people, and they have different hair colors, just like Indigenous people. People ask me why they don't have faces, and that's because I think a young person should have the opportunity to decide what their doll is thinking. Is he or she sad? Is he or she happy? Are they laughing? Are they crying? And you can decide that when your doll doesn't have a painted on face. The dolls also have a red seam on their hair. And in my community here, when we go into powwow or parade or some special ceremonial occasions, we wear red ochre in the part in our hair for our braids. Not all families do that. My family does that. The Fierce One dolls do that. The special thing about the dolls that I feel makes them great for young people is that each doll is named. Generally named people that I know or know of. It's people who I admire because of their success, because of their independence or stick-to-itiveness, their hustle. There's a story that goes with each name. So generally speaking, the Fierce One dolls like school and they like extracurricular activities. They like their elders. They like to participate in traditional tribal activities of today. They have traditional values and they have hopes and dreams for the rest of their lives. I hope you have enjoyed learning more about the Fierce One dolls. They can be found at my website, plainsoul.com, or at beyellowtail.com. And Shay McGwetch to the Oregon Shakespeare Festival for allowing me to share with you. Many blessings to you and your families.
Carrie, I love your dolls. And I love
Thanks.
that they really represent the diversity of Indigenous people with hair color. I love how you point that out. And as I looked at your collections more and what was available, I saw that you feature people just, for all the different things that they do as doctors and lawyers and artists and actors and every flavor. And that's, I think, really important for people in the nation and around the world to understand that we come in all sorts of flavors and we like our bling, apparently, right?
Yes. Gotta have the bling, girl.
We like our bling, we like our glitter shirts, whatever it is. I just love that. And I understand you have two friends to introduce to us that you made specifically for OSF.
I do. This is Hank. I had a hard time picking their names, but I decided I was thinking about how I could honor, the Shakespeare. And so when I was growing up, we listened to country music nonstop, and we listened to Hank Williams. And I heard someone say he was the Shakespeare of country music. So this is Hank, and he's wearing a shirt. This is a fabric I designed from photographs of my beadwork. I don't know how well you can see it, but he's wearing that and jeans. And then this is his friend Bianca. She's named after Bianca in is that Taming of the Shrew, I think. And I just thought she was kind of like a young hip girl, Bianca. And she has a skirt out of the Beaded Nations fabric, and she has kind of a cute little belt with suede dots on it, and she's just cute. Bianca, I think I wrote down their stuff. Bianca is she likes dancing, school, family, and making new friends, and she wants to go to college and study economics. And Hank, he likes to read, listen to music, and write about what he sees. His grandfather says he'll be famous someday. We'll see.
I love it. Thank you so much. I wanted to let you know that in the comments of the live feed, somebody said that the Little Shell story is an inspiration and guide for the Chinook Indian Nation, which is continuing their decades-long quest to clarify their federal status. And they really appreciate raising the issue here today. So appreciate that.
Good luck to them.
Yes, they're working hard. Thank you so much again, Carrie. We can't wait to have Bianca and Hank join us here in Ashland. And Bianca is welcome to come to school here in Ashland too. We have a university right around the corner that she could attend. I would love to have a little chat now with Raven Bright. Raven, you when I chatted with you, I found you on Instagram as a dancer as well, and you had this brilliance. It was really kind of just like these really cool videos up that I thought, and I was so intrigued by the what you ended up producing, because what you ended up producing is a piece called Commitment to Community. And instead of featuring yourself, you featured your community, which is such a typical Indigenous thing to do. So I loved it. But what would you like to tell us a little bit about how this piece came to you and what you decided to share with all of us?
Yeah, of course. So I think the big thing for me was the last big project that happened. I was the one behind or in front of the camera for most of the part, and I kind of wanted to change that up and kind of highlight some people that I get to see not every day, but on every other event I get to see these people, and I just love to see like everything that they bring to the table when it comes to their commitment to the community as well, because a lot of the times these people do so much for everything that they stand for, and a lot of the times they don't get the spotlight they deserve. So I kind of I highlighted a couple of them and gave them time to talk about different things that they wanted to talk about. Kind of went on a conversation base with each one of them, and just didn't really worry about the fact that oh, I have to talk about this or that, because a lot of the times with other projects it's we want this special thing from you, and yeah, everyone talked about that a little bit earlier, but I think that was the big thing for me is I just want this to be whatever it becomes, and I think that's that's really important when it comes to creating something like this. And I think it turned out really awesome. What's going to be shown right now is kind of like a trailer for the rest of the videos. It'll be up on OSF's page, but it's 3 separate videos. I highlighted 3 dope individuals. One of them is named Ashma. She's a younger generation cat. She's super cool, a lot of dope top rock, really cool dancer. She mixes stuff with her culture and connects it to her movement. And the second is Alyssa Trujillo. She comes from my dance crew, Foundations of Freedom. Boom, boom. Yeah, we do some dancing on a rooftop. It's really awesome. And then the third person I highlighted is Nathaniel Nato Rock. He's a dope cat, and he's been one of my mentors coming along when it comes to breakdancing and hip hop culture. So yeah, we just did some conversation and talked a lot about different parts of the community and basically what they wanted to talk about, because a lot of the times people filter things out when it comes to what they want to hear. And rather than doing that, I just let them say what they wanted to say, and they're able to actually like share that on a broader scale, which is really awesome.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that about the piece. And if you didn't catch that fully, Raven's piece is a 4-part series. Three three artists that he features and the intro piece. And we're going to show the intro piece right now for Commitment to Community.
Yat A. My name is Raven Bright. I've been dancing for over 13 years, and I reside in Albuquerque, New Mexico, occupied Tewa lands. I'm half Dene, claimed by Black Sheep Clan, de Bethlehem on my father's side, and my mother's heritage is a mix of Irish, Scottish, and German roots. Growing up being a mixed boy always made me feel like I never truly fit into any single group. This feeling caused me to become introverted and shy for most of my childhood. My mother saw how much I was pulling away from people and forced me into social situations via sports and workshops, where I'd have to be around other people. One day, she sent me to a breakdance class at a studio in downtown Gallup called Foundations of Freedom. I didn't know it at the time, but it ignited a spark in me and cut the path for what my life is today. Being a part of a studio surrounded by people who believe and push you forward is what helped bring me out of my shell. Foundations of Freedom helped me reconnect to my Indigenous roots through the many teachings of hip-hop culture. Taking the initiative to know where you come from is part of the experience. As I grew up, I learned more about myself, and it transferred to my dance style. My movement is my story. FOF means that in order to have balance in your dance, you must be able to have a solid base. For example, a tree that roots the deepest grows the tallest. You must connect both to the foundation and the freedom of dance to embody completely what you bring to the table. Being able to express yourself through movement is such an empowering experience, and it's saved a lot of people that came from Gallup from the many distractions it has to offer. Not only me, but many other people have gone through the same experience. Usually, we would all connect through the in-person events, but during this time period, we have to change and adapt as a community. Using online tools such as this is a good way to share knowledge and inspiration on a bigger scale. We are still connected even through the distance between us. As we keep getting pushed down, it makes us collectively want to rise higher. And it's always better to explode upward than to implode inward. Hopefully this gives insight to the many beautiful humans that reside here and the endless potential we have when we come together to create community. Thank you.
Again, in there, I heard the lifting up of our communities through opportunity, through opportunity, through opportunity, and we cannot stop that. And I know, Raven, that working with the youth is one of your passions as well. So I'm sure you're excited for the COVID's now kind of being handled a little bit more and getting back to being able to teach those classes and do those workshops, as I know many of you other artists are as well. I wanted to open a little bit with a question for all of you about how it actually felt to be asked. I know some of you have highlighted this, but how it felt to be asked to actually intentionally offer a piece of art to the world that didn't fit in an audience expectation of being an Indigenous piece. So I know we had those fabulous conversations, but I'd love for you to share with the audience that's with us live a little bit about what that meant to you to be asked to give whatever you wanted to give. Don't everybody jump on at once. Maybe Lee, you're gonna kick us off after this. So maybe you can share with us a little bit, because I remember in your conversation, you goes, oh, I'm gonna have to think about that.
Oh, I had to think about that because I'm not a visual person, as a playwright. I really hear the words and I rely on the director and the actor and the designers to like come up with, and I'm working on it. Like I'm working, this is my goal, and I'm trying to be more of that as a playwright and not have other people do my work for me. But I had to think about not just sovereignty in the political sense, but sovereignty visually in Hawaii, and also sovereignty in the personal sense. And just taking Hawaii, right? Everybody thinks they know exactly what Hawaii looks like, right? And so that was my challenge, I guess, to myself. What does Hawaii not look like in a way that people, would think? Yeah, Hawaii seems like it's easy to know. So it was very challenging. It was a challenging assignment.
Well, and I love it. You said assignment. There's the journalist coming out.
Yeah.
I have to say too that I think with the exception of maybe Ty, who's done some digital visual work before, none of you all. I asked you to create something in a genre that you don't typically work in, and so that in itself was, and that fit the time, that fit the fact that we are stuck in this, online system right now that we're hopefully moving back away from to live performance again. So it was a task. It was an assignment, Lee. You're right.
I meant that in a good way. I mean,
maybe Malaya, you could share with us a little bit as having that opportunity to, when I asked you to give, what came to mind when I said, give us something that is not necessarily expected, doesn't fit the norm.
Yeah. So, I mean, when you came to me with this and I heard like, well, this has to be virtual, we're going to have to be able to show this to people. So not really having to face like, how am I going to, be able to show this piece with like doing that virtually, because that's not something I'm used to. That's not something that I'm familiar with. And like, I don't think it fully like encaptures what I was feeling in that moment painting as it does in person. So that was, a big challenge having to do that. But also, I'm very familiar with painting, which is what I did. And I was comfortable doing that, but really thinking about something so big, like what sovereignty is to me and what, how to represent that, because like many of us had said, that's such a big question, I can't even answer it. It's always continuously growing. It's an idea that's like changing constantly, because Indigenous people are changing and evolving constantly, and still trying to hold on to ourselves and our ancestors and our practices, but still evolve. And so it was definitely hard to how am I going to represent that? And like, I don't want it to be something that I do all the time. And in a way it was, but in a way it was also such a challenge, because I pretty much fasted the whole time I did it. I was up all night doing it. And it was something that I realized wasn't just a project about, it wasn't just a painting. It was like literally me having to go through this process of figuring out what sovereignty is, especially because I came in so last minute and I was like, oh God, how am I gonna figure this out? Like, I don't even know. And so it was a challenge of just me also growing in this process, other than just painting a painting. It was also, finding sovereignty in myself and figuring out how to express that to the world, because that was like a medium that I had never experienced before, or at least acknowledged. So yeah, it was a very difficult.
Part of the project's goal was to have that conversation about, we are sovereign nations within a nation. We are sovereign to our families, and then we have our individuality too, that sometimes I think gets pushed aside, that we feel we have to relate to the whole so much that we can't just express our individualness that comes through. So it was a really great thing.
Right.
Does anybody else want to share at all how it felt to be asked to do something completely out of their norm or without fitting the audience expectation? Awesome. I would love to move forward and talk to Miss Lee after I put you on blast already.
We're good.
Lee, your piece is absolutely beautiful. I'm so thrilled. It was the first one I received, and I said, oh, if it's all like this is all I could ever dream and hope for. So that was incredibly moving that's what came through. Your piece is titled Ipu, which is a instrument, correct? A traditional Hawaiian instrument. And some of it is so much, what I related to and what I think so many people will relate to is how hard it is for our Indigenous people to leave their communities, to leave the safety of their communities, and to find that balance of how do they carry themselves, how do they find their own agency, and all those wonderful things. I would love to know what else inspired this piece.
Ah, dang it, Hava, you're making me cry, and I'm gonna blame Kara for that.
I'm gonna get half of you apparently today.
Oh gosh. Well, like I said, I wanted it to not be what people expected about Hawaii. And so it's shot indoors, which you would not expect in Hawaii, right? Because it's beautiful outside, but I didn't want to do the surfing, the coconut trees, the waterfall shots, but I write for theater. So shot it in a theater. And that was the first time I'd been in a theater since the pandemic. We all social distance and stuff. But so it had that extra lovely meaning for me. And I also thought about writing a monologue for this specific actor, McCleary, who is just phenomenal, because when I think of Hawaiians and sovereignty, like personal sovereignty, I mean, she is it. And I knew that she has things that I personally don't have, and could tell this story. I wanted to be sure it was a personal story and not speaking for all Hawaiians, because I don't have that place to do that. So it's one person's story. And I wanted it to be funny. I wanted I wanted the character to figure stuff out at the end, have a way forward, a way to kind of, deal with this. And I wanted it to be funny. And I wanted also to mention that McCleary has so many skills, but she also does male drag. So that kind of worked into.
And with that, let's share with the world Ipu.
Okay. I wanted to take this ipu with me to college. This belonged to my tutu, and then it came to me. Wherever I was going, I wanted it with me. I was gonna hand carry it on the plane, but my father said,
nah, pack light. Just take what you need for the first couple of weeks and then buy a warm coat when you get up there.
but Dad, the ipu. How many times did I feel for the places where my tutu's fingers made their music? How many times has my skin touched its skin? I've held this ipu more than I've held my phone. But my dad said,
Keala, if you ever need to hear it again, it will be with you.
but if I call home, will you put down the phone and play the ipu so I can hear it? My dad said,
Sure.
but I saw him shake his head. I don't know if he was more worried about me or more worried about the ipu. But off I went. The ipu stayed home. My first day moving into the dorms, and I meet my new roommate. And she asks me where I'm from, and I say, Hawaii, all proud because I am. And she goes, I never realized people actually live in Hawaii. I think of it as just a place you go for vacation. I try to get worked up to explain a little, but she's just not interested. She stayed in a hotel in Waikiki for a week, so she knows everything about Hawaii. I decide not to talk about home. I just go to school, focus on my classes, and try to make new friends. But inside, I listen for that beat. I listen to it to steady my steps when I'm walking on unfamiliar ground. I listen when I'm trying to learn something new or remember something for an exam. I listen to it when I'm missing my home or wondering what my tutu would say to me. Then one day, my roommate invites me to a party. She says I like it because it's a luau party. I know what to expect, but I go anyway. And it was worse than I ever imagined. I see shiny cellophane grass skirts hanging from the tables, girls in coconut bras, guys in hats from Cancun, cardboard cutouts of parrots and monkeys, plastic pineapples, and some off-brand Hawaiian punch spiked with vodka staining everybody's lips. There was nowhere to sit down. Everybody just stood up and drank and yelled, woo, 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 at each other because the music was so loud. Nobody talked. Nobody sang. And there was no food, not even a box of crackers or that square cheese Americans like so much. Don't be so uptight. This is fun. That's what my roommate said to me. That's what I said to myself. I called my father later that night and I told him, Dad, I can't hear the ipu anymore. Everything here is so loud. It's drowning it out.
Keala, you're the ipu. The kani is the beat of your heart.
My father sent me pictures of home. Some of them are copies of pictures he took with him to college. My tutu's house with the mountains right behind. Family parties with everyone talking and laughing and eating. My tutu dancing. My aunties singing. My kumu, the ipu. I put them up all around my desk. And my roommate said, they look nothing like the Hawaii postcards. I said, that's because postcards look nothing like my home. A couple weeks later, there's a party in my dorm. Same thing, everything is loud, nobody is talking, only yelling, woo! So I go back to my room, take out stuff from my care package stash, pipi kaula, saloon pilot crackers, dried ahi, and some of that square cheese because that's actually pretty good. I put on some music from home and leave my door open. Pretty soon, somebody wanders inside to talk story. Then more people come inside. And after a while, they turn off the speakers down the hall. And we're all in my room singing together, all kinds of songs. I find myself keeping the beat right here on my chest. It didn't look like a Hawaii party, but it felt like home. And I felt like me. My roommate dropped out after the first semester. She was homesick. She lived 2 hours away. She could drive home every weekend. I had thousands of miles between me and my island. My eyes looked for the ocean on every horizon. I miss the mountains at home. Hawaii mountains always have your back. Everything up there was so flat. And all I had were pictures of home and the beat to keep me steady. But I stayed. I stayed until I graduated. And my dad was right. My tutu's ipu was with me the whole time. He Hawaii au mau a mau. I'm Hawaiian everywhere I am and in everything I do. When you leave home, home comes with you. You remember that. Makaukau.
It was so beautiful, Lee. I told everybody it was beautiful. I absolutely love it. I also
shout out also to Chesley Cannon, who was the director, who is not Native Hawaiian, but is Keikioka Aina and has lived in the same valley that I live in for longer than I have. So, yeah.
I love how relatable it is, I think, to any Indigenous person from anywhere that's ever gone anywhere too far, and especially that first college. And having worked at a university for years and years and years, we saw that happen over and over and over, where it's like, if you have to train them to take something from home, but if you know it's right in your heart and that's what you're taking, which is what I loved, that piece that came through in your story, was it's right embedded in all of us and all of them. And
I was thinking a lot about Oregon too, you know, because there's so many Native Hawaiians for generations who have made Oregon home. And in that way where they're Hawaiian, you know, they're not living in Hawaii, but they're Hawaiian everywhere they go. So I was thinking about that too.
I love that. They carry their sovereignty with them. That's why.
Yeah.
We found at the university community that our Native Hawaiian students and our Native American students and our Alaska Native students all found each other real quick. And I think it's because the food is honestly what it comes down to.
And the cheese is okay. That square cheese, it's all right.
Absolutely beautiful. I just thank you so much for sharing that. And I'm so glad that's what came to you. And what a beautiful first step out of just directing for stage and directing instead and writing something for digital. It was incredible. I would love to move on to Malaya Florendo. Malaya, I asked you very last minute, looking for that one last perfect artist to fill the spot that I had. And while you are connected to many, many tribes, you also specifically are connected to the tribe that the Oregon Shakespeare Festival sits on, the Indigenous land of. And I thought it was really important in this first edition of Visual Sovereignty Project to share that with everybody and to make sure we had a Siletz tribal member represented. And you do incredible art, and your story that you're sharing is incredible too. And I just would like to say, maybe you can give us a little bit what inspired you. Why did this concept come to you? Why was this the gift you chose to give?
Yeah, so kind of going back to what I've said before, I mean, this project really came from me, and it's something that grew out of me, and it was so last minute, and I was kind of stuck on this idea, like, what is sovereignty to me? Like, I didn't know, you know, how to answer that question. And this piece, it was something that had always been in the back of my mind, and I never knew like how I wanted to do it, but it just clicked, and I just wanted to, you know, represent these matriarchs and these Indigenous women and femmes that, you know, are often silenced and don't have this platform to feel empowered or beautiful, or, you know, they deserve a space. And as someone who, you know, is an Indigenous woman and who's constantly growing and trying to, you know, tackle my trauma and intergenerational trauma that I'm facing, and finding myself and figuring out how to grow and evolve with that. This piece, you know, it was something that I needed to do, and it was a very healing experience because it gave that space for me and for hopefully other Indigenous women. And so I created this piece featuring different Indigenous women and femmes growing in a garden of, you know, native plants and flowers that are special to me. I've actually painted them all before, and so they came back, but in a different way, and it kind of grew into this secret sacred garden for women and femmes who need that space, and who, you know, need to find that healing and, you know, find those spaces to feel comfortable to grow. So for me, that was it was a healing experience, and I found that for myself in it. So it was a very powerful project, and it also features my little brother, who's also an artist. He does his little rapping and he makes music, and he's fantastic. And so I just wanted to highlight that he's part of that with me, and it's very special. And shout out to Hava, who really helped me with the editing, because video is not my strong suit. But it was beautiful to have different parts of my family to be able to kind of help me create this piece. So I'm very, very happy with it.
And with that, let's share Hu Nima.
Hunitma. It translates to "we are growing together collectively."
Thank you. Here we go.
Aikui, Neknau Malaya Florendo, Oregon Ok, Wishquel Esi Hapau Mikwamechwak. My name is Malaya Florendo, and I currently reside in Eugene, Oregon, on Kalapuya territory. I come from the Siletz and Wasco tribes in Oregon, as well as the Yurok and Karuk tribes in the lower Klamath Basin in Northern California. I grew up on the Yurok and Karuk territory with my family, where I am so grateful to have learned and practiced my culture, and where I was raised on cultural knowledge, social and environmental activism, and I was definitely encouraged to find an outlet that built a strong foundation for a platform that would make me feel empowered to use my voice in a way that fit me and stood for something that I definitely believed in. And I found that through my art. Art is definitely something that has been a constant in my life. It has become a part of my daily life, and it has become a huge part of practicing my culture. As Indigenous people who have fought to overcome the pain of colonization and genocide, we as contemporary people have found aspects of our life that speak to us and speak our old language in a way that we understand. For me, art has been that ancient language of my ancestors that has been passed along to me to understand and hopefully bring back to my people. I have spoken and incorporated this language of art in many different tongues, one of them being my work as an organizer and advocate for Indigenous rights. Everyone speaks their resiliency in some form of life, and I have found creating pieces that reflect that resiliency has truly made me feel empowered as an Indigenous woman.
You're in a world where everyone cries, so just dry your eyes, 'cause it's gonna be alright. And we're all here just trying to live our lives, so just dry your eyes and stay up in the fight. Hey, help.
As an Indigenous woman, I have seen the importance of fighting for other Indigenous women and Indigenous people, and I try to reflect that in my art. I created this piece, which is actually broken down into 3 individual paintings in a mixed medium of watercolor and acrylic on watercolor canvas. While I used outside references, I was definitely inspired by matriarchs in my own life who have inspired me to grow and continue growing these gardens. This piece was created to give a safe space for these Indigenous women and femmes who are often silenced and romanticized because of how colonization has shaped our cultural beliefs of Indigenous women and femmes over time. We need to stop this idea that Indigenous women and femmes were cis, proper women who waited for their husbands to come home from a hunt. These simple gatherers and creatures who were beautiful with long straight hair, who bathe under moonlight and talk to animals, and don't have flaws or a voice, or follow gender roles built by white men. We know they are real, and are still real, and are beautiful and powerful and resilient leaders and life givers, and yes, are magical and spiritual, but aren't modeled in the eyes of men who have been influenced by patriarchal norms built for from colonization. We need to be creating these safe spaces for these women and femmes, because they are kept in a box built by men who only expect them to grow so big. We need to encourage growth and healing and break these gender norms and cycles of oppression. For now, I have created this secret garden full of healing, indigenous flowers to represent that growth and resiliency, and beauty to encourage empowerment, to make these people feel seen and recognized and still feel magical without feeling like they only belong in a box, forced to follow their model of an indigenous woman. Instead, find sovereignty in ourselves and our sisters and relatives to be able to grow and bloom.
My family's stressed, yeah, we all freaking out. I act like I'm fine, but I'm crying inside. I'm dying inside, still have to go to school the next day. Feel like rotting away, coming back in a new way where everything's okay. But no, I can't take that way out. I gotta live my life through, keeping it real with you. I might not be that smart or the coolest guy, but I'm still gonna try to survive. People saying save the turtles, what about us? What about genocide and colonization? What about our native ways and our native traditions? Go back, I think about 1,000 years, we were still ideas, just the eyes in our ears. Now flashback to here in 2019 with all pollution, trash, and atmospheres. Think about that while creator makes another generation and hopefully doesn't intermission our traditions. I don't understand why we gotta have permission to go fishing. We would just be dishing out one dish, not multiple platters. I'm astonished about how much batter it takes to make a couple pancakes and the wheat that's like a week's worth of water. Father, your daughter, my sister got a blister from working so hard. Yeah, I'm scared for my brother and my sisters too.
You're in a world where everyone cries, so just dry your eyes, 'cause it's gonna be alright. And we're all here, just trying to live our lives, so just dry your eyes and stay up in the fight. Hey, help.
Lots of comments in the chat saying stunning painting, stunning, stunning, stunning. Everybody's really impressed with that beautiful work. And yes, to your little brother, I think he's 12, is that right? He's 12? And he had some real business to share there in those lines. I just love it. And all those photos at the end were featuring your matriarchs back, I think 5, 6 generations at least, which is pretty incredible, and showcased your mom and your sisters as well. There's a question from the audience I'd love for anybody to answer before we go to our last artist tonight. It's been really interesting how family seems to be a big through line for each artist offering. Is that always the case, or was it something specific about this ask?
Wow, for me, it's always the case. I'm sure it is for everyone. Like I don't, it's not just in my art, like in my everyday life, I don't do anything unless I think about, like, I can hear my mom or my grandma or my great, before that, the grandma's in the back of my head, or my brothers. I'm always afraid my brothers will get after me if I do something disrespectful or, like, so it's not just art. We just really listen to those that came before us, I think, for my family.
Yeah, I say all the time that, like, I have no original thoughts whatsoever. I am just a vessel for whatever my ancestors want me to say and do, or whatever fuckery they want me to do. So, like, I feel for those folks who, like, don't have that, like, what, you just walking around by yourself?
Anybody else have a comment on that? So good, so good. Also going back, there was so many comments that I missed all the way through, but everybody was just saying Raven Bright is the man, keep up the great work. Tara, back to yours. Somebody said they're not from your specific community, but the idea of not labeling and just making adjustments, not questioning the need to do so, resonates in so many ways. Love that. And lots of, I heart this Ipu story. Everybody was so moved by that one. It's just absolutely beautiful. So good. All right, Ty. We saved that magical dream sequence for the end. You said you were dreaming, so this maybe this is the
Yeah,
addition of that magical dream sequence.
yeah,
Tell
I
me
get to
a
be the
little bit about
magical native here.
what's that?
I get to be the magical native that
You
I've
get to be the
always dreamt.
magical. You gotta tell me where Strong Like Flower came from. What drove this piece?
Yeah, well, you asked us the question about sovereignty, and I was like, wow, okay. So being asked by Native Indigenous woman about sovereignty, and I started to realize that, wow, what truth that I have to bring about, this question, because oftentimes I think in different circles I'm asked by non-Indigenous individuals, which is I think an important point to recognize. So you called me and we were like, okay, what does sovereignty mean to you, Ty? And how are you going to talk about this? And I kind of had some real, like some folks mentioned here, some really back and forth about what that means to me. So Strong Like Flower is a both sincere as well as ironic new ritual that spans time, space, the mind, and the body. And I kind of view it as a call and response to creative jurisdiction at a time of reclaiming, I guess, sovereignty as my birthright. And this reclaiming for me sort of happens over and over and over again as I begin to examine queer lore. And queer lore to me is something that's being told over and over and over and over again, like that great hoop or great circle of life. And so Strong Like Flower is intimate piece of symbolic literacy from an Anishinaabe worldview. So it's very much having to do with family, because for me in this queer lore, it's about chosen family, trying to find family, sometimes family being very dangerous at times for myself, at the times being very loving. So it's definitely something, a visual representation to celebrate, know, and to understand as an individual. I think about reciprocal relationships a lot. And I was thinking about, wow, how could I tell like sovereignty at its most intimate level? And so also with the music came about too. It's the landscapes in the music and really trying to chisel away at truth. Okay, so that's sort of where the impetus of where it came from.
That is so much. And I realize now that when I thought what I was doing was creating a platform for artists to do whatever they want, I was asking for something so much more personal than I realized. And so for each of you, now I realize, I have to send everybody necklaces or something, because this has gone, this has gone other level. I didn't realize how personal it would become. And it's what you said is exactly that. It was this, that exploration of personal sovereignty and how you translate out to the world and where you find safety or the safe spaces to do that, and what is safe to share. And I think that that's just a general, I've heard from many Indigenous artists that I would like to do this, but I don't think it'll get me anywhere. And so finding that safety or being safe enough to just claim that space. And with that, I can't wait to show this last piece, which is Strong Like Flower by Ty.
In the backyard, an iris found. These days might be our last.
Flashes of memories on repeat inside my dreams, like a puzzle being put together and never finding all the pieces. When you invited me over to your spring, it was the first time I ever noticed your fragrance. It was like we were in the future and past colliding. We made jokes about it and have the laugh lines to prove it. We were faces crashing in the wind and rain between pieces of light. A storm lasting for 4 or more days. I didn't even notice until we took a break. It felt like you saw inside of me, right through me, and I could see you back like some ghostly ancestor past. It was brown and black with mint, dark purple like the wampum belt I wore. When I went to take it off, you said, leave it on. You liked how the beads felt on your skin. You liked how the buckskin ties slapped the back of your shape. Maybe because you felt guilty about knowing this colonized land is my home.
Absolutely stunning, Ty. And with all that live, like freshly composed, are you going to keep composing more work like that to put to more videos? That was just incredible. I love the music that went with that as well.
Thank you so much. Maybe that's the next phase of visual sovereignty. Sound sovereignties.
Sound sovereignties. I love it. I love it. There was a question put up in the chat from somebody a little bit ago for all the artists about what inspires you, and besides me asking you to do wild things, what I think more artistically inspires you.
You know, I know for me, my grandkids super inspire me. Just watching them, it's just so great to see them learning about, you know, what we do in our community and their viewpoint of it. We just had a weekend of stick games / hand games, and you know, my 11-month-old grandson was playing, and you know, he woke up this morning still dancing and everything, and that just makes me think about, you know, how do I reflect that in my beadwork? How do I reflect that in something that I'm going to design for clothing? Like right away, I'm thinking, how do I share that joy? You know, that experience that he's having. It's so cool to watch your world through kids' eyes.
Anybody else? How are you inspired?
I'll say something.
Oh, go ahead, Ann. Go ahead.
Okay. I really like finding the space in between where things aren't being said or things aren't being shown, or where things are so pretty. I want to find something a little bit ugly to kind of shake things up a little bit. And all of my family is artists, so they're always like, I kind of seen that before. Give me something I haven't seen before. So that's always in the back of my mind. Somebody like, have I seen that before? Always trying to make something a little bit different, a little bit, turned on its head. So, it's a little bit more interesting and more fun to do and then to experience as a viewer.
Pushing limits and not meeting expectation necessarily. Love it. Love it.
Yeah.
Ty, what were you going to share?
Yeah, I was going to share this idea about radical giving, like giving to give, and the ways that I can continue to do that so I can make the work today. So it's just something I keep coming back to, and I can't help also but think in all these miniature movies that play out about if given an opportunity to create something, like what would you say if it was like the last thing that you had to say or speak as an Indigenous, like indigiqueer person. And so that's something that drives me in a world that is not just for Indigenous queer individuals. So how can I continue to like widen the gap and to create more things, or to inspire youth, or to make connections with people? So I'm just really humbled to be here with all of you artists. I was like, wow, just so inspiring. And I have so many questions and conversations I want to ask each and every one of you about your projects. So gracious to be in the circle. So miigwech.
Always feel free to ask one of them a question. We had a comment that said, so moving, Ty, and thank you to OSF for this beautiful, powerful exploration. Yay in support of claiming sovereignty, which I love that. I love that. So great. One thing I noted in all of your work, you were making mention of lifting up other people. So I always like to make a little time and space. If there's a project or something that you think the audience shouldn't be missing in the next couple of months, or if you have a project that you want to lift up, now's the time. And of course, we will be sharing your web pages and all your social handles so people can find you and follow your work, which is continuous, ongoing. The amount of work coming out from this group of people is incredible. So you will not get bored. You will always have something. So if anybody has anything they'd like to lift up, I would love for you to take that time.
I might take a moment to mention, I have a couple of friends who are working with, it's a new thing that Airbnb has, projects where you can sort of go in and watch a digital, it's sort of an answer to what's going on right now, just like this is. They have a program working just with Indigenous people right now. So if you go on Airbnb, you can look up videos that are just Indigenous art. And so I do have a couple of friends that are doing that, and it's so great. Olivia Rose Williamson is doing tours of the Little Bighorn battlefield, but from the Native perspective, which is super rich and cool, and they're beautiful. And Awanagijik Bruce is doing porcupine quill work, which is sort of not a lot of Native people are still doing Native quill work on birch bark. And my friend Rebecca Darby from Rocky Boy is doing a thing about Indigenous fashion, which is really, coming into play right now. It's so cool. If you want to check them out, they're really affordably priced and kind of a neat thing to do while we're just on the edge of getting out and about.
Awesome. Thank you, Carrie. Anybody else have a show dropping, or Ty put in the comments live at liveinamerica.com? Or is it?
Yeah, I'm doing the queer pop-up powwow October 24th weekend in person. So all you powwow goers out there, it's centralizing queer Indigenous communities, specifically from New Mexico. So Ann, Raven, want to send you a special invitation here. Let me know, let's chat. And then also other folks and folks out there, just want to make sure it's on your radar. If you are a two-spirit Indigiqueer person, it's a queer pop-up powwow. Collaboration with the Crystal Bridges and the Momentary out in Northwest Arkansas. And also Tara too, if you are down there in Oklahoma, I know you're moving around, being nomadic and things like this, but would love to see you there too. So miigwech, everybody. I'll drop the things in the chat and on the Facebook.
Awesome. Anybody else got anything to lift up? I have to say big thanks to 28 the Native for allowing us to use his song that just came off of his new album, Everything is Golden. It's on all platforms. His piece was playing at the intro, and so that was a sweet piece. That whole album's great, so check that one out. And there was a question. Yes, this recording and these pieces will be available. This recording will be available on Facebook and YouTube after it ends, and it's going to be recorded. But you can also go on to OSF's O site, where you can check out the bios of each of these incredible artists, and you can see the pieces, and make sure you see Raven's other 3 pieces, because I'm telling you, that 12-year-old dancer is fire. So go on and check that one out. That whole piece is amazing, but you can take time and kind of like live with these a little bit, which is great. I think everybody needs a little more time to digest them sometimes. So that's available on the O website, and it'll be up there for quite a while. So please check that out. I do have one additional artist. Paul Wilson was unable to join us. He's a photographer, videographer. His people have been in the middle of quite the water wars, and so he needed to put his energy somewhere else. But his piece, Not a Mucklucks, We Are the People, will be soon shared to that site as well. And so make sure you come back and check it out when that is. And with that, I have to say a bazillion million thanks to all of you for joining me on this visual sovereignty adventure that came to mind, and with your help and with all these incredible conversations I had with you, put us in the direction of asking you to gift to the world whatever it is you choose to gift. And now I'm going to think of radical giving as the new thing, and radically receiving those gifts of artistry as well, because I think sometimes we don't do that as well either. And I want to say thank you to everybody at OSF for helping us create these and produce these pieces and this evening, and to Nataki for joining us for the evening as well, and for hopefully more seasons of visual sovereignty. And if it's not through this, it'll be somewhere. We're going to keep this going. We're going to keep this rolling. So thank you, everybody. They wanted to rerun at the end of this as well the land acknowledgement. It got cut off at the beginning, so they want to make sure everybody has an opportunity to fully digest the land acknowledgement that they're that OSF has adopted. So that'll be playing right after that. And with that, I say thank you all so much for joining us, and thank you to the audience for joining us live for this, and check out the pieces over and over and over.